Hello, my name is Andrew. I'm a nurse practitioner with just over 1 year of experience and about 6 to 7 years of clinical experience. In this video, we're going to break down how much nurse practitioner school actually costs and if it's worth it or not. For me, it took me about 3 years from start to finish. It cost me about $50,000, and my base salary increased by about $50,000 from nurse to nurse practitioner. So I made up the cost difference in about a year, and that is something to consider, whether or not it's worth it for you. I'm living in the Midwest, found it worth it, even though that there are all the negatives out there, that there's a high saturation in the marketplace and workforce. But I think if you find the right job out there, I can go for any field, nurse practitioner, doctor. It all plays into market supply and demand and basic economics. First thing to consider when you're applying to a nurse practitioner school is in-state, out-of-state. In-state's cheaper, obviously. And then you have to decide what's best for you. Master's, doctorate. I know that a lot of education platforms out there are going to the doctorate level, and that's going to be more time, more cost, and more burden to you as an individual in the workforce, amongst your family, because most of us will be working either part-time or full-time as you go to school. Typically, nurse practitioner school takes 3 years for full-time students, part-time longer. I think that you can take a semester or two off, but you have to have it finished, I believe, within 5 to 7 years. It's also based on specialty-specific courses. Therefore, F&P tracks could be longer or shorter than acute care, longer or shorter than psych, and so forth. And again, if you want to do certificates after that, then that will be more time. Typically, clinical hours are about 750 up to over 1,000, depending on master's versus doctorate and what type of a specific degree you're going towards and certification. I went through acute care, adult geriatric, and it was about 3 years start to finish. Cost is one of the biggest concerns, along with time. I worked nights myself and then transitioned to days in the final year when I did clinicals. I also transitioned from full-time work to part-time. I worked about 24 hours a week in the final year that I did clinicals. So what that looked like was 3 days of working my job and then 3 days of doing clinicals. And the last year was brutal. The very first semester I felt like was a bunch of weed out classes, papers, and after that there was kind of a lull in the middle where school was enjoyable, and then in the end it was just a grind. You definitely want to quit as soon as you get the first month or two into clinicals and you're like, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, there's no breaks, you just gas, all gas, no breaks. The cost was about $50,000 for my program. I graduated in 2024, started in 2021. I think most programs cost between $40,000 to $70,000, and recently statistics show that most graduates end up with about $50,000 up to $80,000 of debt, which that's tough, because then you have to make that difference up in the first year or two, and you have to decide if it's worth it. Being in the Midwest, I knew that my income would increase $50,000 just from going from nurse to nurse practitioner. In California, we had some classmates, that are making $80,000, $100,000 as nurses, and maybe they would go up to 140 starting out, and they just weren't sure if it was worth it, but they knew that bedside wasn't sustainable for the long term, and they wanted to get into a higher career growth with more responsibility. You need an active RN license, obviously, bachelor's, to apply. It's good to have good experience as far as ICU or emergency department, but certainly, there are tracks out there that will accept, med-surg backgrounds. It all comes down to strong bedside and your determination, to want to succeed. You will need letters of recommendation from 2 to 3 clinicians. I recommend physicians. The stronger your letters are of recommendation, the better off you're going to be. Again, work experience requirements vary from one certification to another. Acute care, adult geriatric, they wanted ICU and emergency department experience exclusively. And it makes sense because when you go to the clinical hours, they want you to have ICU and emergency department clinicals for the higher acuity level patients and more critical thinking. Not to dissuade from F&P tracks because the F&P certification is required for a lot of emergency department, a lot of urgent care out there because you're going to see a lot of kids, and it makes you more marketable and applicable. In addition to a strong bedside and a clinical experience, you'll need a GPA, above 3. The higher, the better. I finished my BSN with 3.5. Again, had no problem applying and getting accepted into the program of my choice. Ultimately, it just comes down to, having a focus in mind, begin with the end in mind, and work backwards. Okay, so I knew that I did not like taking care of kids. It's too much for me. I can take care of adults all day, love them. The older, the better. Little kids scare me, quite frankly. And especially once you have children of your own, I feel like you become more polarized. You either hate it or love it. And again, acceptance rates vary by nurse practitioner school and kind of what you want to get into. My program at acute care adult geriatric, there weren't a lot of applicants. It's very specialized. A lot of people in this degree, they wanted to work in ICU or some sort of adult specialty. And I feel like if you're unsure of exactly what you want to do, you should just start out at F&P track and kind of go from there. But one of the most stressful aspects of NP school is clinical placement. People ask me all the time, hey, can I shadow you? Can I follow you? And the answer is, it's like, that's so difficult to say because not every organization wants students. And if they do want students, then they're probably already giving those positions to residents. And you have to really kind of find private practice areas away from research institutions, because that's where a lot of the residents will be. I ended up finding my clinicals in private practices in small hospitals, rural, more than urban, and they were really appreciative of and really willing to help and train. But also you need to start networking from the get-go. As a nurse, you need to be like, hey, can I be with you? Do you take students? Like, don't get into this thing where, I'm a year and a half into my program and I've got no ideas of clinical placements, because the schools won't help you. And honestly, if they had people that are accepting students, I would not go to them because they're probably burnout, honestly, from taking so many students. But hey, I 10 out of 10 recommend doing it. I would not change it for the world. It's a 40% growth in the next couple of years is expected. Even with market saturation, rumors, myths, which may be true here or there, it's still expected to grow, and when you get out of school, depending on where you're going to work, it's the salary should be 6 figures on up, and kind of go from there, but I recommend that you start doing your research, you start applying, and kind of go from there. Talk to other students, network, and in the end, it's all worth it, and go for it.